So I wrote a letter to my elder brother, my mom, and
itself to writing a letter.
yeah, I couldn't because I think that I wouldn't be convincing enough. So let me just write and probably show the flair for storytelling in that letter itself. So my dad was very emotional क्योंकि 2 साल पहले तारे ज़मीन पर आई थी. तो उन्होंने बोला कि अरे यार नहीं चल तू कर ले यार ठीक है. Because I remember after the film screening of तारे ज़मीन पर he actually asked me मैं ऐसा तो नहीं हूँ ना. And I'm like नहीं dad you're much better don't worry. So cut to 2 years later he was all supportive. My mom was very skeptical because mom का basic instinct है कि यार what's the future, what's the tangible future in this, will you be able to survive, not survive.
Right.
My brother was initially on the fence and then he also warmed up to the idea, and in a week 10 days they all warmed up to the idea, so much so that when I actually joined BMM, Bachelors in Mass Media, they were very supportive. They're like, now that you've taken this step, make sure that you ace it.
Thanks a lot, guys, for coming to the first ever Assistant Directors Roundtable session. Actually, थोड़ा rectangular table है, but time के साथ और budget के साथ ये भी roundtable हो जाएगा. But really appreciate all of you guys coming for this. Thank you so much.
Fun to be here so far.
Hopefully, वक्त ही बताएगा. So I'd like to go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves.
I'm Asmita.
And
And
what
do you do? What is your identity? I'm a second AD, guys. I handle the bass and the actors and the call sheet. So that's my identity.
And how did, so tell me about your journey. How did you get into this industry? What's it been like? What projects have you worked on?
I'll tell you. So I'm a mass comm graduate. And then while I was working on one of my projects, a film project, I just thought wow, this is something which I really, really want to do. And this is something which is making my mind really work. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I graduated from there, and then out of nowhere, zero reference, zero contacts, anything, I just decided कि चलो अभी Bombay चलते हैं. So yeah, that's how I came here, and with no residence, and I just thought that I'll just do something, live in a hotel or something like that. Then one friend was here, I lived with them, and then one house I rented, which was very small. It was so small that I couldn't call my parents and tell them that I'm going to shift to this house, because they would have asked for a video. So I was just like, ये कैसे करूँ अभी? So I just kept telling them कि मैं अपने friend के साथ ही रह रही हूँ and all that. So that happened, and then also I thought कि in 7 days I'll go back to Delhi, because I was like ये तो workout नहीं कर रहा है. I'm a homesick child, so it was very difficult for me to come there and be all alone for so long. And then there was no contact, no reference, no direction where I would go. But luckily in 3 days I got some work, and that made me stay actually. So that was my first project which I did, and it was for Whooped.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a 15-day project. They were doing some web series, and I first worked as an ACH, Associate Creative Head, and I had no clue what to do. It was a small project, and they were just looking for somebody. They were not paying much, so that's why not intern, and they just termed it as an ACH. So that's where I started, and then it's all history.
Long 7 days, yeah.
हाँ मतलब ऐसे तीन दिन में काम वो भी easy है.
No, I was just like 7 days ही है, अब इससे ज़्यादा तो मैं नहीं रह सकती हूँ, मैं चली जाऊँगी. Then I used to give myself this thing कि चलो अभी 2 दिन और रुक जाते हैं, फिर जाऊँगी. But then
Nice.
worked.
Awesome. But generally, yeah, that's kind of a journey.
No, but it's not like that. I kept getting work after that also. Na? I got those 15 days, and then there was a 2-month ka nothing, and I'm like, what am I doing? Should I again give myself a deadline? कि अब next month चले जाना वापस.
No, that's something I want to get to as well in this talk. Just the fact that it's so erratic. You never know when you finish a project, which is a great project, and then you don't know when your next project is after that, right?
True.
Yeah.
The stability is just nowhere. It's not there.
So, Sid, तुम्हारी journey क्या रही है? Tell us about yourself.
हाय आई एम सिद्धार्थ.
हाय.
सो फिल्म्स का शौक मुझे शुरू से ही था, बचपन से ही था, लेकिन पता नहीं था मैं कैसे क्या करूँगा. तो जैसे मैंने 12th कंप्लीट किया तो मैंने सोचा था कि मुंबई जाऊँगा, लेकिन कैसे जाऊँगा मुझे नहीं पता था. तो घर वाले कह रहे थे कि इंजीनियरिंग करो, तो मैंने बोला हाँ ठीक है इंजीनियरिंग करूँगा, लेकिन मैं करूँगा मुंबई से. तो मैंने एज ए एक्टर स्टार्ट किया था. एक्टिंग का ही शौक था मुझे शुरू से. तो मैंने MHCET का एग्ज़ाम दिया यहाँ के इंजीनियरिंग का. अच्छे अब मार्क्स आए, अच्छा कॉलेज मिल सकता था अगर मैं लेकिन मुझे एंड मोमेंट पे पता चला कि मास मीडिया भी कुछ होता है. तो मैंने जय हिंद कॉलेज से मास मीडिया किया. तो 2021 में मैं ग्रेजुएट हुआ. उसके बाद फिर मैंने सर्च चालू किया कि कैसे मैं इंडस्ट्री में घुसूँ. तो टिल कॉलेज आई डिड थिएटर कमर्शियली ऑल्सो, एंड कॉलेज में भी जो कल्चरल ग्रुप था उनके साथ थिएटर किया. लेकिन उस दौरान मुझे थोड़ा सा मेरा लाइफ में थोड़ा सा शिफ्ट हो गया डायरेक्शन की तरफ. कुछ चीज़ें एक्सप्लोर की जो कि हम आगे डिस्कस करेंगे इस इंटरव्यू में. तो डायरेक्शन की तरफ शिफ्ट हुआ. तो फिर मतलब 6-7 महीने बाद कोविड चालू हो गया था. उस टाइम मैं घर पे था. तो एक के रिकमेंडेशन के थ्रू मैं MA में मैंने स्टार्ट किया. मेरा फर्स्ट प्रोजेक्ट मुंबई डायरी सीज़न 2 में था. मैं एज ए इंटर्न मैंने उसमें काम किया. और फिर मैंने बाकी प्रोजेक्ट्स भी किए जो आगे हम इंटरव्यू में डिस्कस करेंगे.
तुम्हारी मतलब जर्नी कैसी रही? वाज इट इजी टू फाइंड वर्क, वाज इट डिफिकल्ट टू फाइंड वर्क? आगे जाके तुम्हें क्या चाहिए बेसिकली इस इंडस्ट्री से? लाइक वेयर डू यू सी योरसेल्फ गोइंग फॉरवर्ड?
मतलब डिफ़िकल्ट था जब तक मिली नहीं वो चीज़. वो चाहे वो टाइम पीरियड कम था, लेकिन जब तक वो चीज़ मिली नहीं तब तक मेरे लिए डिफ़िकल्ट था, क्योंकि मुझे पता नहीं था कि मिलेगा भी कि नहीं मिलेगा, क्या मुझे कुछ और ही करना पड़ेगा. तो टाइम पीरियड वो काफ़ी कम था, मुझे जल्दी मिल गया अगर मैं अब सोचूं तो. लेकिन उस टाइम के पर्सपेक्टिव सोचूं तो बहुत ज़्यादा लंबा टाइम था वो. लेकिन हाँ मतलब डायरेक्टर ही बनना है आगे जाके तो. लेकिन मुझे लोकल सिनेमा पे काम करना है, ना कि मैं हिंदी फिल्म्स पे.
लोकल एज इन व्हाट?
कश्मीरी सिनेमा.
ओके.
लाइक जैसे
That's because you're Kashmiri.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Manu, what's your journey? What are your thoughts?
So even I've done my engineering from Chennai, and once I completed my engineering, I got a campus recruitment in Bombay, which was for a sales company, and I didn't enjoy that work because all they cared about was the target, and once you achieve the target, they give you a bigger target, so that sucked. Sorry. So I worked for about a year there, and then I quit. I got into an acting workshop, an acting class, because I came here to be an actor. And as I worked more and more in small projects and then shifted to a bigger project, I sort of realized for myself that perhaps acting for me is something more like a hobby and not something that I want to take it as a craft, but working behind a camera, creating an entire story. And I feel like as an actor you take care of one character, but as a director you get the responsibility to take care of many characters and their storylines. So I thought that maybe that is something that I want to get into.
And how did that first break come your way?
So as I kept on looking for work, and I came back to Bombay after all the gates were open because of COVID. I met I was casted as a tertiary character in Rocket Boys. So that's where I met a few friends, and I asked Shagun, who is a very good friend of ours, that I would really like to work. And then I showed Abhay a short film also, which I had made back in Gujarat. So I think he was impressed. I hope he was impressed. I hope he was impressed. Yeah.
Did Rocket Boys? I'm guessing he was impressed.
So it was in Pune when I met them, and then after a couple of months they had to start the Mumbai schedule, and I used to message Shagun almost every week. Say, hi, we met during this shoot and all, and I hope I can be a part of your team for the Mumbai schedule. And slowly it turned out, and he called me one day as the Mumbai schedule started. I still remember it was July 27th, the first day of Bombay schedule for Rocket Boys. And since then I've been part of the same company, MA.
So I've worked on Rocket Boys, Mumbai Diaries, and now currently Veda.
Sahil Khanna.
So yeah, I'm Sahil and I'm from Bombay only. Basically, my journey started like, so if you've seen that Farhan character actually, 3 Idiots mein jo Maddie ka character hai. So thankfully that happened 1 year before the film release in my life, in which I was in 12th and I was also doing science from Jai Hind College, and I was then about to get into engineering. But then I just thought that it's not really my calling. I have an elder brother who is an engineer, so I've seen it. And I thought this is not what I want to do in life. And I actually felt that films is something that I've always enjoyed as a kid. And thankfully, even in my house also, like we would watch films a lot, especially Hindi cinema and old Hindi cinema. It's something that we've just watched and enjoyed a lot. So there's always this affinity towards films and how stories are told in that particular medium. So I just kind of wrote a letter to my parents and I said that, listen, I'm sorry, but I have already paid the money for the fee, the entrance exam and stuff. I will give it, but my heart's not in it. So I really want to pursue, filmmaking. I don't really know the route, how I'll go about it, but it's what I want to do. And then I realized again that there is BMM, Bachelors in Mass Media, which is like pretty popular in Bombay especially. And then I just found out, okay, I could pursue that. And then I did my Bachelors in Mass Media, where I made short films, and I had a team which made short films with me.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you said you told your parents, what was their reaction like?
So I wrote a letter to my elder brother, my mom, and
itself writing a letter.
Yeah, I couldn't, because I think that I wouldn't be convincing enough. So let me just write and probably show the flair for storytelling in that letter itself. So my dad was very emotional because 2 साल पहले तारे ज़मीन पर आई थी. तो उन्होंने बोला कि अरे यार नहीं चल तू कर ले यार ठीक है. Because I remember after the film screening of तारे ज़मीन पर he actually asked me मैं ऐसा तो नहीं हूँ ना. And I'm like नहीं dad, you're much better, don't worry. So cut to 2 years later, he was all supportive. My mom was very skeptical because mom का basic instinct है कि यार what's the future, what's the tangible future in this. Will you be able to survive, not survive? My brother was initially on the fence and then he also warmed up to the idea. And in a week, 10 days, they all warmed up to the idea. So much so that when I actually joined BMM, Bachelors in Mass Media, they were very supportive. They're like, now that you've taken this step, make sure that you ace it. And thankfully I did okay, not bad. So, in that. And over there I kind of opened up as a person because I was not a great student in science, and I was not being able to cope up very well. So when I actually did mass media, it kind of opened the gates for me in terms of creativity and interaction and having interpersonal relationships with people in general. So after that, then I opened up a lot and I had a team and we made short films and we used to participate in all these inter-college festivals. And thankfully BMM has these inter-college festivals in which you get a chance to showcase, there are 60-70 films that come in from 60-70 colleges, and then you compete. And thankfully my team and we got shortlisted a bunch of times in those 3 years. So that's where you got the confidence that okay, you can at least tell a story. It's not in a great fashion, because the equipment and of course you are very naive at that age as well. But then but I have always from that age I knew that I wanted to just get into this for sure. There is no looking back and there is no plan B. ऐसा नहीं कि चलो MBA करेंगे फिर देखेंगे, वैसा कुछ scene नहीं. So that happened. And then after that I started doing TV commercials as an assistant. Then I did 1 year of filmmaking, film school proper.
Okay. What school did you go to?
It's a Bombay based school only, LS Raheja.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like a normal film course. My major reason of joining the film course was to learn editing in the beginning.
Right.
Because I lost my editor because he was joining his family business. So he's like यार मैं अभी ये short film and shoestring budget films नहीं कर पाऊँगा.
Right.
And then I was like, I didn't want to do it. I was not a very technical person or savvy person that way. So I was like, let's learn. So when I learned this, the college told me that you can learn this with the entire course, and where I did the entire course, and I did fairly well over there as well, thankfully. उसके बाद I joined TV commercials में being an assistant, second AD. Thankfully, I started as a second AD in that.
And how old were you at this point?
21.
Okay, so fairly young.
That time was 21, yeah, when I started off. And so then I did that for a year. And you didn't get, I didn't get paid anything because they knew that's my first time. So even though on the call sheet I was the second AD, I got paid like 10,000 for 6 months. And then I decided to leave, and I started pursuing. I was getting offers to make corporate AVs and stuff like that. So I thought that I get to direct also. So I directed corporate films and product profiles of companies, and I did that, a bunch of that. And I did that for like another 4 years. But then I realized that you get into a rut when you do that. Then you're just that guy who makes corporate AVs, and the eventual goal was to be in long format, which is like feature filmmaking. So then I decided that one fine day I just thought that I need to get into feature length filmmaking. And thankfully I just knew someone who knew someone, and via you just kind of find and ask that can I meet you and can I just get a chance somewhere. But from that first call to getting actually a chance to being an assistant director in this field took me an odd 6 months where I pursued the person, something didn't work out. I met a couple of directors, it didn't work out, but then they remembered that they'd met me once, so they called me in again, which was in M Entertainment itself.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, in Nikhil Advani's company. So that's what happened. And then I joined long format filmmaking in Satyamev Jayate, the first one with John Abraham, Manoj Bajpayee, and directed by Milab Zaveri.
Got it.
So yeah, that's how I started. And then...
And what's your most recent project, or what have you done?
So most recent release is Bade Miyan Chote Miyan, and a project that I just completed before this, like as we speak, is called Black Warrant. It's a show that is being produced by Andolan Films and Applause, directed by Vikram Aditya Motwane, and showrun by him and Satyanshu Singh. And there are a couple of new directors as well in that. So that.
Nice.
Yeah. It will be no platform yet because it's Applause. So they will. Then after post-production is when you decide which platform it goes to.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll quickly tell you guys about my sort of journey as well. Yeah. It won't take much time. It's a super long story, but I'll try and make it quick. So I used to work in New York earlier. Completely different industry. I used to work in the financial services space. But since I was a kid, I really thoroughly just enjoyed films. I never thought of it as filmmaking then. It was just, I like watching movies. And then I went to study in the US, and when I went to study over there, I took these gen eds electives that you take, as classes, and all of that was just cinema, theater, all of that. And I think slowly I began to feel that there are people who are doing this full time, and oftentimes when you are in school, at least like our generation, you just had two options, like science or commerce, right?
Yeah.
Or, no one really thought hum filmmaker banenge right off the bat.
And art is seen as something which is very low in that thing only.
And I say, I happened to be good at studies, so art was completely out. It wasn't an option then. It was like,
नहीं ये तो बड़ी चीजों के लिए बनाया है.
even when I chose commerce, people were shocked कि commerce क्यों ले रहा है? Commerce तो मतलब जो science में घुसते नहीं है वो लोग लेते हैं, right? So yeah, so I genuinely liked finance as well. But anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, I kind of started studying that. And then once I graduated, got a job, I started working in New York City. And I think slowly over time, as I got more, financially independent as well, this sort of bug in me kept growing, and I felt what if I pursue filmmaking? And I never, again, to a very long point, I never thought of it as a career. It was just a hobby for quite a long time. Until this one time where there was so much going on in my life in terms of work pressure was crazy. On top of that, I was taking all these exams. I completed my CPA, I was doing my CFA, I was studying for GMATs for the MBA and all of that. And I just asked myself this question every other day. I'm doing all this, but do I see myself doing what I'm doing for the rest of my life? And can I wake up every day with the same amount of excitement to do what I'm doing? And I think eventually, obviously the answer was a clear no. And so I finally took a chance, and I took a step, let's go, leave the US and all of that, and move back to India and pursue filmmaking. But I feel my journey was very spread out. So what I did was, I think also because it was a very big move and kind of hard to convince my parents also initially. So what I would do is I would cold call production houses in India from New York.
Oh.
So I would like cold call like Yash Raj, Dharma and all as if I'm in Bombay, but from my New York office. Okay. And my company had like a 1 month notice period. So I'd be like, I'm so-and-so is my background. You let me know, like, even like a month in advance, I'll quit my job, I'll come or whatever. I reached out like crazy to who I could possibly reach out. No one got back to me. Okay. No one got back to my calls either. And in the middle of all this, I did this 3-month filmmaking program at New York Film Academy, which initially started off at New York Film Academy in New York and ended up doing it in Mumbai at New York Film Academy.
Because they have a division here as well.
Yeah, that's a whole different story, but long story short, the logic I thought behind it was that if I eventually have to come to Bombay to pursue this, then I might as well do New York Film Academy in Bombay than in New York. So, whatever. So, long story short, all that happened. I made a few contacts through film school and all as well. But again, like I came from a point where no one in my family or friend circle or anyone, like absolutely zero contacts. And then eventually over time, it took me 2 years after that filmmaking course to actually quit. And then I kind of moved back to Bombay, where I already now when I was going to quit had preemptively begun to make calls to people in my network कि अच्छा मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ ठीक है तो you told me कि तुम्हारी film ऐसे 2 महीने बाद start हो रही है I can be an intern on that or whatever so just like keep me in mind and stuff like that and after I moved back it took me about a month and a half to find work and that too it was more like I was an intern AD in an ad production house so I did that for like about 4 or 5 months and then I was like I can't do this all my life. Ads don't excite me as much as a film does, and the journey of a film is very different from that of an ad. So फिर मैंने वो भी छोड़ दिया. And इतने में I was looking for long format work, and then another good 2 months went by where there was nothing. And same thing, like, a lot of times you meet people who have genuinely good intentions to help you out, but there are things beyond the control. For example, shoot push हो गया. Production changes, first AD changes, so now they want to bring their own team and they can't bring you on board. And obviously you also meet people who say they'll help you out but they don't help you out. So it's kind of a mix of everything, but nothing was really working. Until this one fine day, I was just in the gym and I got a call from one of our friends actually. Krishna called me for Satyam Jayate 2, which is a movie some of us have worked on together. And again, Milap Zaveri. That was my first sort of movie in Bollywood. And which was really interesting because at the age of 28, I quit my job in New York as a manager and started off as an intern in a completely different space, but like extremely glad to do so. And उसके 2 हफ्ते बाद COVID हो गया. And then I was like, fuck, अभी तो शुरू हुआ था. Perfect cherry. Yeah. But again, I mean, things picked up after COVID, and I think that COVID phase was very sort of mentally, a mental mindfuck in a way because no one knew when things would resume. And when you are in that space where you don't have certainty, and there's nothing else to do in your life, you tend to spiral into negative thoughts. So I started thinking of things like कि अब तो जो crew size है वो छोटा हो जाएगा. The first person to get cut is the intern. तो मैं कब वापस जाऊँगा film पे? And just things like that. So, but I mean, again, shoot resumed, things worked out, and it's been.
I remember this now. Yeah. सोच रहा था अचल को निकालने का.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Just kidding.
Thanks for having me.
अचल रुद्र दोनों को निकालने का सोच रहा था. नहीं.
But things kept going, right? Even when the COVID was there, right?
No, yeah, it
was quite totally shut down.
Yeah.
As in, it was like Zoom calls, but once in 2 weeks.
Fully resumed after 3-4 months only, I guess, right?
More than 3 months. Good like 5-6 months.
Yeah.
Yes, I think March. Restarted in July, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prep.
Correct.
I restarted in September end. But that's because those was 2 months.
It was only him who started in July. I also started August end.
Yeah.
So we have ADs basically from different sort of walks of life at different stages in their ADing career. I mean, obviously,
ADs are like assistant directors.
assistant directors, yes. And Sahil obviously being the most experienced over here. And I just want you guys to talk about, what particular roles are, what different AD roles are on a set or in a movie, and just sort of educate our audience about that. Let's say someone who wants to get into this department, into this field, what is AD life like? So Asmita, I know you have for quite some time been a costume AD, right? So if you want to go about starting off with talking about what a costume AD does, and then how you sort of transition from that to being a second.
Yeah, so basically when I started, it was all very new for me and I didn't know like what exactly the role will be. And then there is no one to tell you also that what it actually is your work.
Yeah.
So somebody just told me that you will be handling costumes. I was like, okay. And I had no knowledge like how it is different from a costume assistant. She's also handling costumes and going to actors and doing the same thing. Then slowly I realized you're the decision maker. You are the one who's actually telling them what they need, like what needs to be done from the director's point of view. Yeah. So they are the one, like you are an assistant to the director also and he tells you his vision. You are the one, the communication, the medium between director and the costume department. So
the costume assistant basically is in the costume department.
Correct.
You are the direction department.
I'm from the direction department and she's or he is somebody who is representing the stylist or the costume designer and I'm the one who's representing the director. So yeah, that was something. And then I started learning paperwork, which is like most important. I on my first project was an ACH, so there was nothing like a breakdown or anything. There was a costume AD who made it and that's where I saw it and I was like, okay, so this is something which if I want to pursue this line, then I want to like learn it and all. So I took a format and then I was very quick to learn and all. So I started doing that. So I think that's something which I love also. Doing breakdowns, making reference decks and I have a thing for fashion, styles and everything. And most of the projects I have done, the HMU department or the costume department, they put one presentation and then like you need to build on it. It's not always like they don't spoon feed you everything. They just So that was there. I used to sit for hours and hours doing referencing this, that because I loved it. I was just like, this is my work and this is something which I can really do nicely and I enjoyed it quite literally. So I kept doing that. I would make like a lot of presentations and then I'll show it to the director and he'll be like, There's one thing, this also, I have seen, like it can be a personal experience. The directors are more inclined towards art and like the setup, the locations and costume, they want to leave it to the designer or the stylist who is doing it. There's few directors which I worked with who are like very particular about outfits, but otherwise people are just like, मतलब जो भी जिसको भी hire किया है वो देख लेगा, वो कर लेगा. That will happen.
Same goes with the juniors.
Yeah. So I think so I think that actually gave me a pretty nice opportunity that I can put my creativity into it. And I remember I was doing a horror film for RSVP. And there was this ghost, how do you say it? A dwarf? No, yeah. There's no real ghost.
On a shoot.
Yeah. So I got to design the entire prosthetic stuff out of him. How his eyes will look, how his lips will look, the hair, this, that, everything. It was quite enriching. Like, it was a very good experience. And then I'll present it and then they'll be like, yeah, there'll be the designer who'll be like, putting it, and they'll be like, हाँ नाक ऐसी रख सकते हैं, oh eyes reference, हाँ this is good, and that's how the entire cast was made. So I felt very proud of myself, and then I moved on from there, and then I started working as a second AD bass. So started interacting with the actors, giving them dates, and all of that actor communication. So again, it's very this thing. I mean, you need to be really clear on your communication when it comes to the actors, and you just, because I feel like you can't take back what you have said, be the dates or whenever that commitment things come and you have primary actors to handle. So I think let's tell people primary, secondary and tertiary.
Oh, yeah, that's so hierarchy.
So primary basically is your main actor, actress, the key characters in the movie. Secondary basically is like, let's say, actor's friend, brother, sister.
All supporting actors.
And tertiary basically is the smaller roles, like 1 to 2 to 5 minutes.
One-liners.
Yeah, he will know better.
But tell me, what else does a bass second do apart from actors? What else are your responsibilities as bass second?
See, I'll tell you, it's more about bass is mine. I run the bass.
So okay, just to explain bass over here. So there is set.
Yeah.
The set is where you shoot, right? And your bass is like your backup for whatever's happening on set. So let's say actor ka costume change chahiye, kuch chahiye.
On bass.
So that's the bass AD's job, to make sure that is happening on time. And all that HMU, the makeup department, so there's time allotted for everything. Like if there's some 50 minutes for an entire thingy, then you give 20 minutes for a costume change, 30 minutes for makeup, and then there's mic lagana hai, all that. So
it's the real behind the scenes
Yeah,
sort
you
of
give the
work.
calls actually, that this has happened now, iska turn hai. This has happened now, you send the mic guy. So he comes and he mics and all that stuff happens. So that is all. You are the one making the call sheets. You are putting, like, you are on the
Production,
forward.
yeah.
So coordinating with the production about the requirements, everything. So that's all, like, it's a behind the scene thing, but it keeps going.
Yeah.
And I personally enjoy it more than the set actually. So yeah, that is there.
And do you feel that in any way takes away from any learning you might have? Let's say, do you miss being on set, seeing how a shot is designed or how it's taken?
Yeah, obviously. So basically, as I said, that communication is the key. Now I'm at the base. Now the actor is asking which shot it is, and I have no clue which shot it is because it's not announced on the walkie, and I don't know which shot it is. So obviously, I'm not the main center of the entire thing which is happening, and I feel like, quite literally, I felt very lost on sets where so again, it's a first AD's job to communicate all these things, that what are we doing, what will we do next, what is happening. So I have worked on projects where that has not been happened, so I have felt very lost, or people will ask me where the shoot is and I will have no clue where the shoot is. Because I have been at somewhere, people don't take a costume AD to recce's.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's all a new game for you, that okay. So people who are smart or who learns fast, they know that morning mein aaye ho to aagar ke dekh lo kahan shoot chal raha hai. That's the best thing which you can do, so that you don't embarrass yourself.
मुझे एक बात बताओ. So why is there this thing in the industry कि costume ADs have to be women? Why can't men be costume ADs?
I think it has something to do with the communication part.
Okay.
It can be. I mean, I'm not really sure of it, but I feel like that. And communication with the actors, I'm saying. But because you handle costumes and you handle HMU, and the HMU is like hair and makeup department. So the moment makeup comes into the picture, it's general perception that it's a girl, it's a woman who's supposed to handle it, which is not true actually. I mean, it's not something. As I said, like, designing is the HMU stylist or the team's job.
But if I may, there are male costume ADs as well. Of course, the preference is given to females because in a cast, especially if you have females, it becomes easier for female cast members to be more comfortable with the costume AD who is a female.
Correct.
The major reason is that. The driving reason is majorly that. And like whenever we also hire and whenever the production also asks us that you should have a female costume AD, because imagine having like 8 female characters on
Yeah.
set. And having a male costume AD would just make them probably uncomfortable because everybody wouldn't be comfortable with the idea of a male costume AD handling costume, miking them, you know.
Yeah.
So it becomes more comfortable if a female person is doing a costume AD's job because it will make the actors more comfortable.
Yeah.
So primarily that is also a very major driving factor for this decision. It's not, but there are male costume ADs as well.
Yeah.
So Sid, I know you were helping out as a costume intern in your first movie, right?
मैंने ब्रेकडाउन पे इतना काम नहीं किया, लेकिन मैंने असिस्ट ज़रूर किया ऑन सेट कॉस्ट्यूम एडी को। तो ज़रूरी है कि आपका जो बात करने का तरीका है वो बहुत अच्छा होना चाहिए एक्टर्स के साथ। तो जब आप जाते हो कि सर चेंज है, ये है, वो है, तो बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है वहाँ पे। तो उस चीज़ में मैं अपने आप को खुश नसीब समझता हूँ कि मेरा हमेशा से एक बात करने का तरीका बहुत अच्छा रहा है, तो मेरे लिए वो हेल्प किया सेट पे। बाकी जहाँ तक कॉस्ट्यूम कंटिन्यूटी की बात आती है ऑन सेट, उस पर मैंने ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं दिया।
कुछ नहीं अच्छा लगा तो
You know whom to blame.
If you think a stethoscope somewhere was missing, you know where.
Yeah.
तो जब मैंने ये चीज़ की कॉस्ट्यूम्स वगैरह हैंडल किए, तो उसके बाद मैंने डिसाइड किया कि मैं ये फिर नहीं करूँगा। तो मैं शिफ्ट हुआ।
That country
That's why I know male costume ADs.
तो उसके बाद फिर मैं थर्ड पे शिफ्ट हो गया। तो थर्ड मेरे लिए काफ़ी अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस था, क्योंकि मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है लोगों से बात करना। तो जब मैं थर्ड बना तो मैं 500 लोगों से बातें कर रहा था अलग अलग जूनियर से। सो प्रेप में मैं पहले बता दूं कि थर्ड एडी का क्या काम रहता है। तो थर्ड एडी जूनियर्स हैंडल करता है, व्हीकल्स भी हैंडल करता है काफ़ी प्रोजेक्ट पे, और काफ़ी प्रोजेक्ट्स पे जूनियर्स व्हीकल्स और वेपन्स भी हैंडल करता है। तो प्रेप में उसको पूरा प्लान बनाना पड़ता है कि सीन में हमें कितने जूनियर्स चाहिए, और किस सीन, अगर व्हीकल्स भी संभाल रहे तो सीन में व्हीकल्स कितने हैं, प्राइमरी व्हीकल्स कितने हैं, हमारे हीरो व्हीकल्स कितने हैं, और बैकग्राउंड व्हीकल्स कितने हैं, और अगर वेपन्स भी संभाल रहे तो सीन वाइज वैसा ही चलता है। तो मेनली लड़ाई रहती है हमारी प्रोडक्शन के साथ कि जब हम एक ब्रेकडाउन बनाते हैं कि इस हर सीन में हमें कितने जूनियर्स चाहिए, और फिर वो जब डे वाइज जाता है, जब स्केट बनता है डे वाइज जाता है कि इस दिन पे इतने जूनियर्स हमें लगेंगे, हमने बना दिया, वो सब कुछ प्लान बना दिया। अब अगर मैंने 4000 जूनियर्स टोटल हमारे मूवी में हमें अगर 4000 जूनियर्स लग रहे हैं, अब प्रोडक्शन आके बोलेगा कि इसको 2000 करो, तो वो बहुत चैलेंजिंग रहता है कि ये कैसे जाएगा। तो वो सब करना प्रेप में। उसके बाद फिर ऑन सेट लोगों को कैसे आप हैंडल कर रहे हो, मेनली आपके कोऑर्डिनेटर्स बहुत अच्छे होने चाहिए। अगर वो ऐसे वैसे निकले तो फिर आपकी लग गई। मतलब बहुत बार ही होता है कि सेट पे अगर कंटिन्यूटी में कोई जूनियर्स फंस गए और अगर वो गायब हो गए कट के बाद, और जनरली यही होता है कि जूनियर सेट कर दिए हमने, प्रॉपर सेट हो गया जूनियर, टेक हुआ तो कट हुआ जैसे ही तो जूनियर्स गायब है, और वो कंटिन्यूटी वाले जूनियर्स हैं, एक्टर्स, प्राइमरी एक्टर्स के पीछे खड़े हुए जूनियर्स हैं वो, और अब एक्टर्स वेट कर रहे हैं जूनियर्स का।
चोरी बिल्ली का खेल हो जाता है,
कब जूनियर वो आएगा और कब वो शॉट लेंगे, और उस टाइम पे फिर जो हमें गालियां पड़ती हैं, जो कि मैं कैमरा पे नहीं बोलना चाहता, वो हैंडल करना, वो सब चीजें। तो कोऑर्डिनेटर बहुत जरूरी है, बहुत अच्छा होना चाहिए।
आई एग्री। तो
और
जब मैंने भी स्टार्ट किया था चैतन 2 पे, तो हमने एक्चुअली शूट स्टार्ट किया था लखनऊ से, ठीक है। एंड आई हैडंट, सो माय फर्स्ट एक्सपीरियंस विद जूनियर्स वाज लखनऊ जूनियर्स। मुझे लगा कि सारे जूनियर्स और कोऑर्डिनेटर्स ऐसे होते हैं, एंड द डिफरेंस इज कि जो बॉम्बे में जो जूनियर्स होते हैं, दे हैव बीन डूइंग दिस फॉर अ नंबर ऑफ इयर्स, तो उनको एग्जैक्टली पता है कि क्या हो रहा है। मतलब इफ यू गो एंड टेल द कोऑर्डिनेटर कि अच्छा इनको वहाँ पे खड़ा कर दो, दे विल बी लाइक कैमरा वहाँ पे लगा है, ये लोग वहाँ पे खड़े होंगे। दे आर दैट श्योर अबाउट व्हाट्स सपोज्ड टू हैपन। लखनऊ में इट्स वेरी स्मॉलर सिटीज, आई वुड से, इट्स वेरी डिफरेंट। तो ये सेम चीज़ हो रही थी। एंड स्टार्टिंग आउट, you don't know what the best practices are. So I would do things like I would announce माइक पे कि जो भी ऐसे एक्टर के पीछे खड़ा था आ जाओ और अभी ऐसे 400 लोग आ रहे हैं क्योंकि सबको फ्रेम में दिखना है सबको
और वो अलग अलग सीन के आते थे तो उनको बताना पड़ता था कि ये सीन, अब कोऑर्डिनेटर को अगर पता होगा कि किस सीन में कौन सा खड़ा है तो बहुत इजी हो जाता है। तो
फिर धीरे धीरे यू स्टार्ट टेकिंग फोटोज टू सी हु इज वेयर।
That's the learning.
फिर तुम जूनियर्स के फोन नंबर्स लेते हो कि उनको कॉल करो कि कहाँ पे हो तुम अभी अगली फॉर्म लगने वाले
कोई पीछे जाके सोया होता है, उसको उठाना पड़ता है कि भाई साहब शॉट लग गया है, एक्टर वेट कर रहा है, एक्टर वेट कर रहा है आपका।
And no breaks. Oh
No
my
breaks,
god.
हाँ, ये थोड़ा सा हमें
और
बुरा-
चाय
चाय बहुत जरूरी थी।
But मतलब it's very inhuman actually to say all these
Inhuman ही
things,
होता
but
है, मतलब हमारे साथ तो होता है, हमें तो आदत हो गई होती है, लेकिन अगर आप आउटडोर जाते हो और वही ट्रीटमेंट जब जूनियर्स को मिलता है तो उनको तो इस चीज की आदत नहीं है, तो उनको उनके साथ वैसे कोऑर्डिनेट करना कि बस हाँ बस इसके बाद लंच होने ही वाला है, ये लंच हो बस ये लास्ट शॉट है, लंच होने ही वाला है, तो बहुत डिफिकल्ट है वो, बहुत डिफिकल्ट है। और तब भी वो करते हैं वो चीज़, बहुत मतलब उनके लिए तालियां बजनी चाहिए कि वो उस चीज़ के लिए आते हैं रोज। हाँ।
So Manu, what has your experience been like? How do you normally handle?
So for the past 3-4 years, I've mostly handled juniors, actors, and now since I've been working on post production as well for the films, I've also handled dubbing and the whole sound department as well.
And so something I want to talk about. So obviously most of us, we end up talking about, or even people when they know, they think of our job as being on set or whatever little prep is involved. But how important is post production for an AD? And how does post production sort of shape you as an AD, or even if you want to be a director in the future, how is all that important?
It's first of all, it's really fun because that's where you see that where the film is actually made. Like you go out, you shoot, but it's when you come back and you sit on the editing table is when you realize that how each and every frame or each or every shot design actually makes the story. You take one simple shot and if you extend, like we say head and tail, कोई एक शॉट होता है उसका एक हेड या टेल थोड़ा सा इधर उधर इंक्रीज करो, इट चेंजेस द एंटायर language of the scene. So and then when you see how the film is slowly built layer by layer, like you have the SFX, then you have the sound effects, then you have the BGM layer over it, and then you have, if your film has dubbed, then you have the dubbing layer, and when it all comes together,
And obviously like VFX and all. As well.
the VFX also again, and then it all comes to one single place, which is the mixing place. So when you see it being made there, and especially someone who has been sitting on this process for the past again 2-3 years, I've realized that during post production itself you learn really intricate things which you didn't learn on the set. Like sometimes the director was shooting a scene and you weren't there, but when you came back and then you see the scene, then you realize what it meant when the director told him to take a step here, or don't say the dialogue until unless he looks at you. So when you see it on the frame, that is when you realize the beauty of it. So yeah, I think that's for me that is a really, really fun part.
Nice. And Sahil, so you obviously have had the most experience out of all of us over here, and being a first AD, being an associate, what is the role of a first AD, and how is an AD team built, and how do you sort of carry the team through a shoot?
So basically, in filmmaking, there are different departments that are a part of what comes to screen. So there are different head of departments. Like you have the director, and like how the director is the head of department for the direction team, which comprises of assistant directors. Okay. You have a costume team, you have a costume designer who heads the costume team, you have a production designer who heads the art or the production designers team, and you have like a casting director who manages casting. So a first AD is like the head of department for the direction team after the director. And so a team composition in general is it's not definite, it's variable depending on who the first AD is and how the production also sees it.
Right.
And the major job of a first AD is to kind of be in touch with the director and be the bridge across the director, the production, and all the head of departments. That's the primary job. And honestly, the entire filmmaking process in terms of production like after pre-production and production, is that the passing of information to all departments. That's what the direction team is supposed to do. Like, which is why you have different assistant directors assigned to different departments, so that it becomes that particular assistant director's job to kind of give that particular information, which is the director's information, the creative information, to other departments. So as a first AD, like how I normally have a team composition is different from what someone else would have. But yeah, general composition would be a first assistant director, probably a key second assistant director, then another second assistant director. Sometimes, and the costume department, the person from the costume AD is called the second AD. And then you have a third AD who normally manages tertiary cast and characters and junior artists, who are basically, but this again, different assistant director, first ADs have different team composition.
Right.
Someone would probably give someone vehicles to do. Like a second AD, if the film is very heavy on car explosions and stuff, so key second AD would be managing vehicles. Like for example, where you're using military vehicles and stuff. So it becomes a very integral part of the story.
Right.
So depending on how that job is and how important that particular element is important in the frame, you kind of assign an assistant director depending on that. So for me, it's kind of, I have been a first AD for like 2.5, 3 years now. And before that, thankfully I've done all departments before becoming a first AD. I have done a little bit of costume. When my costume AD ran away, like when we had a team and when the costume AD was absent for some time. So I did work in costume as well. I started off as managing background action, tertiary characters and secondary characters. And I have done action like in isolation as well. Like as an assistant director, I've done action, vehicles and art as well. So kind of you understand that what the challenges of every assistant director and every department in general is. And it's majorly communication. And for me, it's that only, that primary importance is information, like getting the information and passing the information. So for me, that's the key thing to do. My job is probably not, being there and अगर मुझे 10 जूनियर लगाने हैं, ये मेरा काम नहीं है. But knowing कि यहाँ 10 जूनियर चाहिए, ये मेरे assistant director को बताना is what my job comprises of. Like she said, that you tell them what scene is going on. Normally I prefer that, whenever we have a scene change or, a shot change, you normally just, on the walkie, you just announce it that, okay guys, we'll be shooting a so-and-so scene with so-and-so characters, which should be in so-and-so continuity, etc. And we should be shooting here. So this information, like she said, it should come from the first AD.
Right.
Like normally the director and the director of photography, the cameraman, would normally design the shot. And then according to what they design, you communicate that, okay, this is what we will see in terms of the set. We'll probably see this wall and, with these actors and probably these many juniors. You get that information, you hear them out, and you kind of give that information to your respective departments. Apart from that, a first AD's primary job is timekeeping. Like you're basically a timekeeper. Our major job is that, okay, this is the film and this is what the budget is of the film. And you have only these many days to tell this story.
Right.
This is mutually decided. And to make this story possible in execution, to happen in the number of days that have been assigned, is what the biggest job of the first AD is. Like for example, if you spill a day or a couple of days, due to whatever reason, a first AD might get upset that, okay, I had probably said that, we could manage this shoot in, for example, we say 50 days, and it goes on to 55 days. Or if it's like, goes on to more days, then you kind of, as an assistant director, your timekeeping job has not been well.
Right.
In that case. Or you be realistic in your schedule in the beginning that, okay, this particular thing will need 60 days. Unless we cut creatives, unless we cut parts of story to fit it in the desired amount of time. So primarily that is
how do you deal with things where, so again, it's easier said than done where, let's say you ask for 65 days and you get 65 days, right?
Yeah, never happens.
Production is always going to push you and that probably is going to end up becoming like 55 days, for example. Or 58 days or whatever, right?
Yes.
Now at that point, you know that this might not really be possible and it's going to go over and all of that, right? How do you manage a situation like that, and how do you, let's say on set, to what level are you comfortable, let's say, do you push your director, or what level are you comfortable pushing your director to finish something?
So I don't think there's any director who can say that I've got the desired number of days to shoot my film.
Right.
Probably, the biggest of the biggest directors can actually go out, vouch for that and say that. Even for them, like I've been thankfully a part of some of big films also, which needed X number of days, which I've shot for like 100 days also, but वो उनके lens में वो कम है. For them, probably they would need 150 days and they've managed it in 100 days, for example. So I don't think any director will ever be able to say that. But in that case, what happens is everyone's very aware. Also, now the director's awareness, comes into play over here. If the director knows that he's getting to make a film at the end of the day, so for him to execute it in whatever number of days, eventually end product, like 1 year from now would be that he would have a film. That's when you understand where you can push. On set, what you can do is, like for example, if I've given a 65-day schedule and they say that 55 days is what you have. So my first step is to kind of see how I can trim it even more, how it's physically possible with the existing creatives. By creatives, I mean with the existing script. Whatever is possible, you do that. If it's not, even after that, then you have a conversation with the writer, director, or whoever it is, and then you request them that, sir, if this is what we have, reality is that this is what we have, and if we need to go any further, we might have to, shave off some creatives and take some calls with, for example, there might be like a very short scene which will not be like half a page, but in terms of a production day, it might just cost us 2 days of shoot. And if it's something that can be creatively compromised and it doesn't affect the major narrative of the film, then you can tell them that, okay, this will save us 2 days, and you could probably use 1 day out of these 2 days in some other sequence that might need help.
Right.
So you always go with a solution, not just a problem. That's how I approach it. That you don't go with a problem to the director, that you can't do this. No, you say that, so if you do this, probably we might be able to squeeze something else in here. And that's how you should approach it, because I know a direction team, especially abroad, like assistant directors end up getting into production positions later on in life.
Right.
So our major job is basically production. Because
That's what I was going to get to as well. Yeah.
But in India, we also, like I prefer that, the creative is now compromised. You have to be smart about it, that it's not that this is a number and work towards it. No, then there are days where you do go 1 day over probably, but it is for the narrative. And when you know that the director has probably compromised 2 things, then you fight for the third thing with production and say, listen, I've done this for the director, he's done this for you, now you need to do something for the director as well. And that is the balance that you have to, like ideally you should inculcate that, so that, all parties are happy, because eventually the main goal of anyone is to just make a good film.
Right.
Like no one's making it कि नहीं मुझे सिर्फ number पे करना है, and it should just, no, eventually it should be a story that is, serving the purpose. And everyone's working towards that, and once everyone realizes that, okay, we are working towards the same goal, and once as a first AD, if you can convince people that, listen, we are all on the same team, I think that's when people don't mind compromising. They don't mind taking these tough calls.
Right.
And that is what my approach is. I prefer doing that. But every first AD has a very different sort of. But yeah, when I was like becoming a first AD, I would research that how to be a good first AD. And one of the videos I saw was like saying that you're a timekeeper, basically. So till today, that's the one thing I do. Like I tell myself every day on set that I'm basically a timekeeper. And if I don't make the day, then I have failed. And I get very disappointed if I don't make the day. Which has happened. Of course, it happens a lot, but still. Which is why I have a watch at all times. The day I forget to wear a watch, I feel that, something is very often, it's going to be a fucked day. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that. A digital watch that too. So not analog. Not analog.
Digital one, not
Not analog shit. This is just for the interview, guys. But a digital watch, yes.
You need to see the 23 becoming 25, 26, 27.
Yeah, because when people are saying how much time, they say 30 seconds. Then I actually wait for 30 seconds. If it's beyond 30 seconds, I'm like, you've gone beyond 30 seconds, boss. Or if it's 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys, for stopping by for part 1 of the Assistant Directors Roundtable. In part 2, we talk about the pros and cons of the industry, what drives us, and where we want to see Bollywood going forward. So mark your calendars and catch part 2 on Saturday, the 4th of May. Cheers, and may the 4th be with you.